On the 27th of May 1940, a message was sent to Lord Gort, the general commanding the British Expeditionary Force trapped by German armour on the beaches around Dunkirk, to evacuate the maximum force possible. So began Operation Dynamo, the British Army's greatest disaster and greatest deliverance. The retreat from Dunkirk succeeded beyond all expectations. While the troops struggled to reach the rescue ships, the full weight of the Air Force was thrown in to attack the German bombers pounding the beaches. Royal Navy destroyers brought off most of the men, but they were backed up by boats of every kind. Pleasure craft, river ferries, fishing smacks, you name it, it was there. Fortunately, the sea was calm, and for 6 days the fleet, nearly 900 little ships as they were called, sailed back and forward across the channel until they'd saved a total of 338,000 men, 140,000 of them French troops. It was an astonishing military feat. The British Expeditionary Force was saved. Its equipment was lost, left behind in the scramble to get aboard the ships. But that could be replaced. The men, the core of the future British Army, could not. By the end of the evacuation, 6 British destroyers had been sunk and 474 planes shot down. Within weeks, the French, under Marshal Pétain, sued for peace. The whole of northern France and her coastline down to the Pyrenees was now under German occupation. Of the countries in Europe that stood against the rise of Nazi Germany, Britain was the last to hold out. Even though the country was militarily isolated and alone, Winston Churchill made it plain in a defiant speech in the House of Commons that the country would fight on. It was the triumph of Dunkirk that made it possible. It was to be 4 years almost to the day before British troops were back on French soil again. On June the 6th, 1944, the biggest combined land, sea and air operation of all time set off from bases in southern England to free Europe from its Nazi invaders. D-Day, it was called for no obvious or political reason, but in fact it was the start of the final phase of the Second World War. The Supreme Commander, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, called on resistance groups on the continent to rise against the Germans and help the Allied forces.
This landing is but the opening phase of the campaign in Western Europe. Great battles lie ahead. I call upon all who love freedom to stand with us now. Keep your faith staunch. Our arms are resolute. Together we shall achieve victory.
At first, the Germans thought the invasion would come further north along the French coast around Calais. They believed the Normandy landing was a feint aimed at drawing their armour away from where the main assault would be launched. As a result, they held back several divisions, giving the Allies on the beaches an easier run. The problem for the Allied commanders was whether they could bring up their reinforcements faster from the sea than the Germans could on land. Normally, land-based forces would have the advantage, but in the event, it was the Allied air superiority that made the difference, slowing down German troop movements as they came up to reinforce their beleaguered forces on the beachhead. By the end of the first 24 hours, Allied forces had penetrated several miles inland. The great invasion gamble that could have gone so badly wrong had paid off. Now the Allied troops were faced with the bitter 9-month fight across France into Germany, to the heart of Berlin itself.